Okay, have you ever been in a place so loud you couldn't even hear the person next to you? Like, I don't know, like a sporting event where everyone was like screaming at one time, a bus filled with middle schoolers. You guys are loud. Or a church nursery when all the kids were crying at the same time. Oh, I have. Let me just tell you, when I was in middle school, I was a cheerleader. That's right. And here's the deal. After every one of our games, we would go to CiCi's Pizza, the best pizza place ever. But here's the deal. The football players are like, oh, we won. Or they're like, man, this is so sad we lost. That's how I feel guys sound. I don't know. But then the coaches are like, everybody be quiet. Be quiet right now. I mean, it's just so much. And all I'm trying to do is just talk to my best friend Raven about the week I had. Sometimes life feels a lot like that, doesn't it? I mean, sometimes it seems like there's just so much noise happening around you that it's hard to listen to the people you really want to hear. We've been talking about it in this series about ways in which you as middle schoolers are overlooked or misjudged or underestimated. And often the people who are underestimating you the most, the people you don't think have as much ability or potential as you have, are the adults in your life. I know. Boo, okay? But what makes it so difficult for you as middle schoolers is that the adults around you have the loudest voices. No, I don't mean like volume-wise, though I'm sure some of you have parents who can really turn up the volume when they're mad. Clean up your room! Clean up your room! Shout out to mom, you know? Sorry, mom. I mean that the voices of the adults in your life are really important because they're the ones you have to listen to more than any others. But sometimes that could just be difficult. When I put these on, I turn the volume up and I can't hear anything else. This is really crazy. I can't hear anything. When you can't hear, all your other senses are impacted. I'm really loud. I'm really loud. I can't hear. But, I mean, let's be honest. That's like your everyday life, isn't it? As a middle schooler, you have so many competing voices for your attention. There's like siblings and friends, your teachers, your coaches, your small group leaders, even me. I know, it's crazy. Those voices are all speaking into your life and asking for attention. And when you put all of those voices together, the level of noise can just be pretty high. And the truth is, it's just hard to hear the right voice when there are a bunch of other voices in your ear. That makes learning to listen to the adults in your life even more difficult to do. Why? Well, for some of you, it's hard to listen to adults because you don't think they understand. After all, it's been a really long time since they were in middle school. Not me though, because I was in middle school just a couple of years ago, so it's not okay. Now, you've even heard rumors of phones with cords attached to a wall, communication on papers sent to friends in other towns, and stories where you went to rent a movie. I remember all of it, it's okay. The adults in your life don't know anything about texting or social media or Netflix. I mean, how could they possibly understand you and your life issues, right? Or maybe you're hesitant to listen to adults because you don't think they like you. A lot of adults in your world ignore you and act like you're a bother to them, or they pay a little too much attention to you, almost as if they're waiting and like watching for you to do something bad so they can yell at you. I mean, like we've been saying in this series, sometimes adults underestimate you. They see what they want to see, and sometimes it's maybe they only see the negative. Maybe the adults in your life are hard to listen to because it seems like they're constantly on a power trip. It seems like they're just trying to be in charge of you or have authority over you, and every word out of their mouths is an order or a command or an instruction, and who wants to listen to that all the time? Or maybe you struggle to listen to the adults in your life because you don't feel like they deserve to be in charge. You see the choices they make or the way they act, and honestly, they're not great choices. And why should you listen to someone who isn't modeling good behavior for you? Listen, no matter which category you fall in, I get it, I understand. There are many reasons that make listening to the adults in your life seem pretty terrible. But have you ever thought that there might be power in listening to the adults in your world? I know, that sounds like something a grown-up would say. But trust me, it's true. Okay, here's how I know. In this series, we've been looking back at the relationship in the Bible between two guys, Paul and Timothy. Both were important leaders in spreading the message of Jesus to others after he died and rose again. Paul, though, was older than Timothy, and often Paul would send letters of instruction and encouragement to Timothy as they worked together and ministered together. And as a young person, Timothy had a choice. He could listen to Paul's voice in his life, or he could just, tune it out. Thankfully for us, Timothy chose to listen. Above all the other noise, Timothy chose to turn up Paul's voice, and because of that, the message of Jesus continued to spread. Let's look back one more time at one of the most important messages Paul delivered to Timothy. Here we go. Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity. Paul knew Timothy was dealing with a lot of noise in his life, and so many of those voices underestimated Timothy. But Paul encouraged Timothy to turn down the volume on those voices and instead focus on growing his faith and setting an example in his actions. I think that's pretty good advice, guys. But it's the exact same thing. I got excited and I'm overwhelmed. And it's exactly the kind of thing I hope someone older and wiser would say to me. As an adult in Timothy's life, Paul knew the influence his voice had over Timothy, but that's why Paul continued to give Timothy wise advice on how to deal with other people along the way. Okay, here's what he wrote specifically about other people. You gotta hear this. Never speak harshly to an older man, but appeal to him respectfully as you would to your own father. Talk to younger men as you would to your own brothers. Treat older women as you would your mother, and treat younger women with all purity as you would your own sisters. Paul was basically saying, respect the people around you. The older crowd needs to be treated with respect. R-E-S-P-E-C-T. And guess what? So does the younger crowd. I think it's clear that Paul thought it was important for older and younger people to spend time together. But as a student, I know this isn't easy to do. In fact, it's a lot easier at your age to see both younger and older people as aggravating. I mean, think about it. You don't like your little sister bothering you, and you also don't like your dad telling you what to do. When you're the oldest person in the room, the younger ones, they're annoying, okay? They're just running all over the place, it's crazy. But when you're the youngest in the room, the older ones are just out of touch. They're like, yo, yo, yo. It's just crazy, okay? But that's totally normal though. I mean, when we see the world that way, I think we risk missing out on Paul's encouragement here. You see, Paul didn't encourage Timothy to distance himself from other adults, but instead to embrace them with the same respect he'd give to his own family. Why, you ask? Because the right adults in our lives can help us grow. Now again, I know, this sounds like something an adult who is trying to help you grow would say. It's true though, okay? And it's not just true for middle schoolers, it's true for me too. Even though I'm not even that much older than a middle schooler, kinda. Anyways, the people who are older and wiser in my life, the ones who have lived more years and experienced more, have a unique perspective that can help me as I grow in my faith. I mean, of course, Timothy could have ignored this speech. After all, it's a speech most people hear at some point in their lives. He could have heard this and thought, Paul was an old, out of touch old guy and just decided to ignore him. But instead, Timothy took what Paul said and acted on it. He treated Paul as someone wiser that he could learn from. Timothy didn't underestimate the wisdom Paul had to share with him, and just like we see with Timothy and Paul, when you choose to listen to wise and trusted adults, your world will be a better place. It will unlock more growth, more knowledge, life, and potential than you could even imagine. I think one of the most important things we can take away from Paul and Timothy's relationship is this right here. Never underestimate wise adults in your life. But remember, when we talked about all those adults' voices, and they just seem to contribute noise and not something that matters, I mean, if we're supposed to listen to the adults in our lives, does that mean we're supposed to turn up the volume and listen to every single one of them? I mean, that just sounds like more noise, right? That's also true. Listening to the wrong voices will only just create more noise. But listening to the right voices can give you more freedom. When it comes to the adult voices in your life, you can choose who gets to speak loudly into your life. I mean, does that mean that you just disrespect and tune out all the other voices of authority? No. Remember, Paul encouraged Timothy to treat everyone with respect. And the same is true for you. I mean, this isn't a free pass to ignore the rules of your parents or the instructions of your teacher or the voice of your coach at practice. I mean, part of growing means learning to listen with respect, but never underestimating wise adults in your life means turning up the volume on the adult voices who care about you, the ones that want to see you grow, and certainly don't underestimate your potential. So, lots of information, lots of words. You're asking the question, how do we do this? How do we know which adult voices can be turned up? How do we let them impact our lives in a positive way? Well, folks, I am so glad you asked. Number 1, figure out who you'll allow to speak into your life. Here are 3 questions to ask before you reach for the volume control on the adult voices in your life. Do they make wise decisions in their own lives? Do they care enough about me to tell me what I don't want to hear? And have they proven themselves to be trustworthy to other students like me? If you can answer a big, loud yes to those 3 questions about any adult in your life, then that's a sign their voice has value. You can crank up the volume on what they say and allow their words of wisdom and encouragement to help you grow. Number 2, think about one big issue that's impacting your life right now. Maybe it's dating, or school, or conflict in your family, or a fight with your friends. Figure out one area that you could use some advice from someone older and wiser. And number 3, finally, that rhymed. Invite an adult to speak into your life. Whatever it is that's impacting you right now, ask yourself, have I invited a voice that's older and wiser to speak into this part of my life? And if you have, take some time this week to thank that person for being someone whose voice is helping you grow. And if you haven't, think about why. What would it take for you to turn up the volume on an older and wiser voice? Maybe today is the day you can invite your small group leader to be that voice. Now, I realize some of you may be afraid to invite an adult to speak into your world because in the past, you've been hurt by an adult. I understand why trusting the voice of another adult in your life might be hard for you to do, but let me just encourage you to start with one of the leaders here in this room. They're here because they love God and they love you too. They have proven themselves trustworthy and would be honored to listen to you, to get to know your story, and to share their wisdom with you. Remember, when it comes to the voices in your life, you have a choice to turn up the volume. Never underestimate wise adults in your life. And as you head out, I want you to think about this question. What area of your life could be better if you let a trusted adult speak into it?